jelly, but we're doing a million other things that back then when I was at UCL I couldn't have imagined, and it's all come out of working hard, finding connections and just driving things forward with passion.
UCL is great at keeping in contact with students even after they've left university. They send updates and newsletters informing you about relevant opportunities and events that you can come back to network.
Even when I was on the other side of the world in Hong Kong and Asia, I just met so many people who went to UCL or who were at UCL, so it was nice to be a part of that community.
In a way, we've never really left UCL. We're constantly using lots of their facilities that they have. I've been back to teach on occasion.
Giving me a great opportunity to come back to UCL and feel really part of the university again.
There's so many of us out there, whether it's in London or whether it's in Hong Kong or whether you're in, I don't know, South America. You feel like, you know, you have friends wherever you are.
Be part of the alumni scheme because it enables incredible creativity and some rather unexpected connections as well.
I'm really proud to say that I went to UCL.
You don't know when opportunities are going to come along in life, and when you do, and when you see one, just grab it.
It's just nice to keep in touch.
Keep in touch.
Stay in touch with them on UCL.
Once a UCL student, you'll always be a UCL student.
Stay in touch with UCL and be part of our amazing alumni community.
UCL was founded in 1826 and has 29 Nobel Prize winners among its alumni. UCL opened a campus in Adelaide in 2010. It's consistently ranked in the top 5 universities in the world. UCL Australia offers an industry-specific education focused on energy and resources.
This course would appeal to a number of people, whether you're just trying to get in as an entry-level energy and resources understanding, like myself, or whether you're a professional already engaged in the industry looking for that something further.
My course at UCL has actually completely changed my career. With my background in mechanical engineering, I was previously working at SANTOS Brisbane in upstream operations. And since completing my MBA and graduate certificate at UCL, I've completely changed my career to a commercial-based role as the markets analyst in the corporate strategy team.
My advice to future students is to come to UCL Australia to further their career in the energy and resources industry.
The course is quite specific, but at the same time you learn quite a broad range of topics within the specificity, and that is precisely what will get me to the next level of my career.
UCL has great links with the industry, especially Santos here in South Australia. It also has links with oil and gas companies throughout the world.
Please stand for the academic procession. Thank you. Please be seated. As the MC of UCL Australia's 2016 graduation, I'm thrilled to commence the proceedings today. Firstly, I would like to invite Uncle Lewis O'Brien to give the kind of welcome.
Marawichanga, Ghana Mian and Iwangani, Mani the Bundigani Atana. Naibiriko, Mankalankala, Tandanya, Mianaku. Nature Yugandalia, Nature Yakanandalia, Padni Adlu Wadu. On behalf of the Ghana people, I welcome you all to Ghana country, and I do as ambassador of the Adelaide Plains people. My brothers, my sisters, let's walk together in harmony. I should tell you a little bit about the past history of the Ghana people, because I don't think many people know, but we ran conferences in this country for thousands of years. We were educators, we educated the whole country, and the Germans found that out, teaching our kids in 1839 to 1845. They taught them in Ghana language on the banks of the Torrens, and then we got their letters translated from Old German. They sent back to their country in Dresden, and I finished up reading the 28 letters, and only one letter tells you all the happenings that really interest you. And one of the letters said this: these kids are no different to kids we taught in Europe, and they're talking about rich kids. They didn't teach poor kids till 1870 in Europe. So you can see this country was a highly educated country when the English came here in 1788, and a lot of people wouldn't even know that. But the Germans found that out, and they also found the word for conference, which was Bamba Bambalya. So all the different groups around this country came here, because this was the centre of education. It's interesting that you're here, UCL, because you're at the centre of education for this country in the old days. So we're very proud of that. And not only that, when you do something, you always find you get an additive. They came to us for education, but all the different groups came to us, and then we found out that every language group in this country had knowledge that no one else possessed. And I'll give you a couple of examples. The Burong people of Victoria pride themselves in knowing more about the stars than anyone else in the country. Now you can go to Mawson Lake and see Ghana by the stars, because they taught us to name every star in the heaven and tell stories about the stars. And the Pitjantjatjara people are singers. They sing more notes than anyone else in the world. And I thought, why do they do that? And I went to the music college. How come they sing more notes? He said they have no finger instruments. Finger limits the notes you'll play, therefore the notes you'll sing. And so you can see that that's our culture last 60,000 years, by sharing knowledge with each other. Knowledge is your wealth, and that's how you can develop and last so long. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Uncle Lewis. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mark Johnson, UCL class of 2007, and now representing UCL Australia. And although I'm not from these lands, I'm very privileged to call them my home now. On behalf of UCL, I'd like to acknowledge that the land we meet on today is the traditional lands of the Kaurna people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the traditional custodians of the Adelaide region, and that their cultural heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. Before we begin, I'd like to welcome a few people. Firstly, UCL's Vice Provost of International, Dame NICHILO, who joins us from London for her first UCL Australia graduation. The Honourable Martin Ferguson, who, amongst other things, is former Minister of Energy and Resources and the current chair of UCL Australia's Advisory Board. Visiting Professor Dr. Tim Stone, CBE, who, having taught the majority of graduands here today, will be delivering the closing remarks. Ms. Joanne Fox, Chief HR Officer at SANTOS, one of our major founding partners, and equally as important, Jo is one of UCL Australia's alumni and also sits on our advisory board. Professor Tanya Monroe, Deputy Vice-Chancellor of Research and Innovation at UniSA, who's representing Vice-Chancellor David Lloyd. Mr. Terry Evans, Pro-Chancellor at UniSA, representing the Chancellor's Office. Mr. Rick Morris, Executive Director from the Department of Premier and Cabinet, representing the Premier of South Australia, the Honourable Jay Weatherall, and, equally as important, Rick is also a member of our advisory board. Uncle Lewis O'Brien, Ghana Elder and UniSA Fellow. Adelaide's Lord Mayor, the Right Honourable Martin Hazy, and Dr. Paul Willis from the Royal Institute of Australia, who's kindly lending us this venue for our graduation. I'd also like to welcome other industry hosts, government officials, and overseas delegates. Graduands, alumni, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you all to UCL Australia's 2016 graduation ceremony. Our graduation is in December, and it also serves as an end-of-year finale for students and staff. So we like to make it a little bit special for everybody involved. I've been lucky enough to attend all of UCL Australia's graduations, and this is my third as MC. Shortly, I'll invite Dame Nicola Brewer to address our graduands as our official representative from London. We'll then award our students with graduate certificate, graduate diplomas in energy and resources policy and practice, and then students who've gained their Master of Science in energy and resources management. Following this, there are 2 awards and oversized cheques, which are awarded to 2 very lucky and deserving students, hopefully with 2 oversized wallets or purses. We'll then welcome Dr. Tim Stone to the stage where he will give the closing remarks, and after that we'll have a great morning tea upstairs for you all. This graduation's got special significance for me. I recruited the 2015 cohort, many of whom are graduating today, and I've still remained on very good terms with them through some tricky times, otherwise called financing resource projects and energy technology perspectives, which Tim taught. It's scary to think that 10 years ago I was in my final year at UCL doing my thesis, trying desperately to finish it. You remember the feelings that go through a graduand's mind. Thank God that's over. Hurry up, get on with it. A few nerves, but also the pride. It's a great achievement and the culmination of an academic and personal journey. As an event, it's important to remember that this is all about the students. It's a celebration. It's a change in their direction of travel and a rite of passage where they join the ranks of some pretty high-profile alumni. 29 Nobel Prize winners, 3 Fields medalists, numerous political leaders and actors and musicians, directors, a global network of over 200,000 connected alumni who chose UCL, gained the necessary grades required to get in, and graduated from one of the continuously highest ranked universities in the world. They've earned the right to be part of this alumni network. We were 190 years young this year, founded by a group of radical thinkers determined to unshackle education, to be the first university to admit students regardless of gender, of race, religion. And it was these values that led my father, Ian Johnson, to study there and then launch his academic career there. It's what prompted me to study there too. And if I'm honest, it's what pulled me back to working with UCL in Australia. And it, I guess, helped me with my engagement in this place that I'm really proud to call my home. We often give a little bit of a review of the year that was, but there's been so much happening in 2016, you couldn't write half of it. At times it's felt a little bit like being part of a reality TV show in the final season. We started with losing great icons such as David Bowie and Prince, and Alan Rickman, Ronnie Corbett, Caroline Aherne and Victoria Wood, Muhammad Ali, Gene Wilder. Don't get me started on Harambe, as we were discussing earlier. We saw mass riots in the USA and Brexit, which was then trumped by the USA. 2016 has been eventful, to say the least. From an energy and resources perspective in South Australia, we've had a royal commission into the nuclear fuel cycle with a citizens' jury. We've even had South Australia being the first state to achieve carbon neutrality from an electricity generation perspective, thanks to our Victorian interconnector. And by Victorian, I think it's important to point out that it's in the state of Victoria, not built during the reign of Queen Victoria. The geopolitical, economic and technological landscape changes, even in the past couple of years since this cohort started, shows how much opportunity there really is in the sector and the need for continuous improvement. Previous generations can talk about how far they have come. The younger generations always hear about how good they've got it, when we're not tucking into our smashed avocado brunches and single origin white coffees, but there's still work to be done. And there's still many issues in the world that aren't quite right. It doesn't mean that the current system necessarily needs a complete overhaul. We're part of the School of Engineering, not the School of Demolition. We're tinkerers. It means that we need critical thinking and proper consultation and trust to formulate and action the right decisions that will benefit and be a force of betterment to mankind. The students have studied energy and resources management, which is a multidisciplinary approach, which hopefully gives them the tools to go out into their careers and the world to analyse, think and improve. Or as our slogan for UCL's Faculty of Engineering says and tells us to change the world. Again, it might not be completely shut down or restarted. It's easier to find a way to make improvements to existing models, and it's a little bit less apocalyptic. But having said that, the inventor of the telephone, Alexander Graham Bell, a UCL alumnus, didn't get there via continuous improvement of letter writing. It took a little bit more. And to quote the late Gene Wilder, or more precisely Willy Wonka, if the good Lord intended us to walk, he would never have invented roller skates. So there you have it, class of 2016. There's so much opportunity for you. You're such a talented bunch, and the world awaits. We wish you well. We're proud of you. Be proud of yourselves. It's now my pleasure to introduce Vice Provost to address graduation. Before joining UCL in May 2014, NICHILO was a senior diplomat at the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. She was British High Commissioner to South Africa, Lesotho and Swaziland from May 2009 to September 2013. As Vice Provost of International, NICHILO is responsible for UCL's global engagement strategy, London's global university, working with partners to achieve fair solutions to global challenges. NICHILO has lived and worked in South Africa, India, France, Mexico. She joined the board of the Department for International Development in 2002 as Director General for Regional Programs and moved back to the FCO as Director General of Europe in 2004. NICHILO became the first Chief Executive of the Equality and Human Rights Commission in March 2007, a role she held until May 2009. NICHILO read English at the University of Leeds, graduating with a BA in 1980, and subsequently read linguistics at Leeds, taking a doctorate in 1988. She was appointed Dame Commander of the Order of St. Michael and St. George in the 2011 Birthday Honours List. Please welcome Dame Nicola Brewer.
Thank you, Mark. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honour and privilege as UCL's Vice Provost International to add my welcome to you all to UCL Australia's 2016 graduation ceremony. Today is all about celebrating and congratulating tomorrow's leaders of the energy and resources industry. We at UCL are very proud that you are joining our distinguished and growing company of alumni around the world. Perhaps I can look forward to being invited back to Adelaide by invitation of a local alumni group here in future years. If our alumni in Hong Kong and Los Angeles and New York can set up alumni groups, I'm absolutely sure you can do it here in Adelaide too. Because those groups are a fantastic way for UCL to stay in touch with you and for you to stay in touch with UCL and with each other. I hope that you, our graduates, are as proud of us at UCL as we are of you. One recent, one alumna of UCL who graduated, let's say, some decades ago, recently joined UCL's Governing Council, and she learnt about the fantastic advances we've made, particularly in the last 10 years, across research, education, enterprise, innovation, and international partnerships. And she said to me as an aside after her first meeting of the Governing Council, I knew I went to a good university, but I didn't know just how good it was. And UCL really is extraordinary. We are one of the top 10 universities worldwide. If you average out those infamous university league tables, we come in reliably at about number 7. That's after a couple of universities you might possibly have heard of, Harvard, Cambridge, Oxford, those kind of universities. But in terms of research power, so that's multiplying our size by the quality of our research, in the last 2014 Research Excellence Framework in the UK, we beat Oxford and Cambridge. We absolutely deserve our position up there at the top. Now, I'm not at all shy about singing the praises of UCL. It's part of my job, and I enjoy doing it. But that's not the point I'm trying to make here. What I'm trying to talk about is the value that you, our graduates, get from having a UCL qualification on your CV. I am confident that it will go on shining, giving you a standout advantage throughout your career. Coming back to UCL Australia, our academic programs here are particularly innovative You could say they're unique. We take a cross-disciplinary systems approach to learning how to manage energy and resources, such that it equips you, our students, with a skill set that is really of global importance. Proper management of energy and resources is not only highly technical, it's also highly complex. It involves politics, economics, governance, law, and other disciplines. So you take all that together with the hard sciences. It's highly complex, and therefore it requires that systems approach. And since we started offering that to our students, other institutions in Australia have followed that lead. But UCL Australia, we like to say, did it first, applying UCL's distinctive interdisciplinary approach, our tradition of radical thinking, and our commitment to equality and social benefit. Our international strategy, which I'm responsible for at UCL, is based on working with partners who have deep local knowledge to achieve those fair solutions to global challenges. And we at UCL believe that South Australia is a great location in which to seek solutions to the global challenges we all face around energy and resources. And that's why UCL's Faculty of Engineering is developing such a close partnership with the University of South Australia. Now, I'm confident that UCL Australia's teachers and researchers have shared with all of you, our students, both the excitement and the social value that drives UCL's Faculty of Engineering. UCL is a place that believes in changing the world for the better, and UCL engineers believe they themselves change the world. I hope that's come across in your teaching. Often overlooked, but not at UCL, are the ethical obligations that accompany the responsibilities borne by people who want to change the world. That means, this is what our engineers say, doing the right things the right way. And recent graduates of UCL Australia are now doing the right thing the right way in leading multinational companies like SANTOS, like Bain, like McDonald. They're working in key government roles, including here in South Australia. So that's great for their careers, it's great for the companies, it's great for governments, and it's great for the future of our planet. So wherever your own personal career path takes you from here on, you can be confident that you will always remain part of one of the finest universities in the world. And I'd like to finish by saying congratulations on your success. Congratulations on the smart choices you have already made, because you came to UCL Australia, and the ones that you will make. And please stay in touch with us. UCL wants to know how you are helping to change the world for the better. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Provost. We've now come to the arguably the most important part of the ceremony, the graduation itself. In UCL tradition, it's the time when the students graduate by leaving their academic tutors to be received into the university. And I'd now like to ask our head of department, Professor Magnus Neiden, to present the candidates for the award of Graduate Certificate and Graduate Diploma, and then for Master of Science to the Vice Provost.
Before, however, can I tell you all, graduates of today, how I'm feeling? Because it's a great feeling. It's very difficult to express, as head of department, what it feels like coming into work every day, talking to young, smart people about batteries, electricity markets in South Australia, about behavioral science and why on earth did they choose whoever they chose in this and that election. What's the grand scheme of things in terms of the political impact of what we're witnessing at the moment? What's the chemistry behind the battery, by the way? And what's the electrical system to drive the electric grid in South Australia? And how does the markets work? discussing these things with young, smart individuals is why I'm in the academy, because it gives me great joy. And largely because I feel I learn from you all the time. You might sit here and think that, you know, it's about teachers, professors learning things, teaching things to students. It's also the other way around. We learn a lot from you. So I'm really appreciative of all the discussions we've had in the common room, in the corridors, because it's taught me a lot. So thank you for that. With that, I would like to start by asking Provost, because I request your permission, to present to you the following students who have been awarded a graduate certificate in Energy and Resources, Policy and Practice. STEPHENIE HILDA de NICHILO. STEPHENIE is not here today. ASSEM SARIEH MOHAMED MAHER ELESSAWY, who is also not here today. Patrick John Joseph GREENE. Patrick could not be present today. Jacob Anthony Jordans, and Jacob is also not here today. James Paul Telford. David John Maxwell Turner. Vice Provost, I request permission to present to you the following students who have been awarded a graduate diploma in Energy and Resources, Policy and Practice. Toby John Patterson.
As Vice Provost International, I would like to congratulate you on your academic achievements and invite you to don your mortarballs.
Vice Provost, I request permission to present to you the following students who have been awarded a Master of Science in Energy and Resources Management. Stephen Nicholas Bondio. GWANGJUN Cho. GWANGJUN cannot be here today. Pedro OLAVO dos Santos Carvalho. Emma Mary Haddon. Aaron Mathley HAIFLEY. Shu Cecily JIANG. Augusta Lane. BELEN ELAINE LEVERONI VILLAFANA. BELEN could not be here today. NILOFAR Morgan. Peter James Palmato. Muhammad Ilham Pasha.
As Vice Provost International of UCL, I would like to congratulate all of you on your academic achievement and invite you to don your mortarballs.
Thank you. You can return to your seats now. We're going to need a bigger boat, I think.
Congratulations, a fantastic achievement. And it's now time to, I guess, do the awarding of the oversized cheques that I was talking about. Do people still use cheques? Next we might do PayPass, but I'm going to invite Magnus now to give a brief background about the medals and prizes that we're about to award.
Thank you, Mark. So let me give you a very brief background to the Growth Medal. The winner, the Growth Medal winner, is a critical and creative thinker, ambitious but idealistic and committed to ethical behavior, aware of the intellectual and social value of culture difference, an entrepreneur with the ability to innovate, willing to assume leadership roles, and highly employable. And this year, the medal is awarded to Stephen Bondio. You cash it in, I think. NAB is right across the street. That brings us to the second medal today. It's called the Torrance Prize. UCL Australia brings UCL's vast expertise and experience to the center of Australia's resources industry, applying research to real-world problems for the benefit of the global society. We are extremely proud of the graduates today who are well placed to help industry meet the challenges and forge ahead into the future. And the Torrance Prize is awarded for academic achievement in this regard. And this year, the prize goes to AUGUSTA Lane.
Thank you, Magnus. Two very worthy winners there who, by chance, have their projects on display upstairs. And I really recommend that you go upstairs for morning tea and have a look at them and talk to them about their projects. Again, interviewing both of those two winners to study this MSc was fantastic, just to see them grow into the role. And I remember their interviews straight away. I remember Stephen talking about his engineers work that he did for charitable organisations overseas that really hit home with me. I remember looking at Augusta's undergraduate degree in geophysics and civil engineering and asking, why on earth did you do that? And she said two things that really rang true with me as a proud husband to a strong-willed lady and an even stronger-willed daughter. She said, well, it's simple, really. They look like really difficult courses. And they were only blokes that were studying them. And that sort of thing is really important, especially in the Faculty of Engineering Sciences, where we're really trying to push STEM subjects from women. If you look at our graduates here, we've got a fairly good representation, and we're pretty proud of all of that. I'm really, really pleased to introduce our next speaker. UCL Australia is lucky to benefit from a number of visiting academics who teach and collaborate in research activities and engage with the state of South Australia as well. Visiting Professor Dr. Tim Stone taught many of the graduating group in energy technology perspectives, so they're all really pleased to see him. now, because they passed. Tim studied a BA in Natural Sciences, an MA in Chemistry, and did his PhD, or DPhil, at Oxford. Tim was chairman and founder of KPMG's Global Infrastructure and Projects Group, prior to which he was the managing director of SG Warburg in New York and London, and a managing director of Chase Manhattan Bank in New York. His career began after some teaching experience at Oxford with Arthur Andersen & Co.'s management consultancy division. Until 2013, Tim was the expert chair of the Office for Nuclear Development in DECC and the senior advisor to successive secretaries of state responsible for energy. He served 5 different secretaries of state in 2 different governments over nearly 7 years. Tim is chairman of the Nuclear Risk Insurers and is also the longest-serving member of the board of the European Investment Bank, a non-executive member of the Arup Group board, and a non-executive director of Horizon Nuclear Power. From 2011 to 15, he was a non-executive director of the Anglican Water Group. He's a member of a number of advisory boards for infrastructure investors, funds and advisory firms. He was a member of the Expert Advisory Committee of the Royal Commission on the Nuclear Fuel Cycle, established here in 2015 by the Government of South Australia as well. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Tim Stone.
Thank you very much, Mark. Good. Good morning, Vice Provost, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Can I start by paying my respects to the traditional people of this land and honour their elders, past, present and emerging. But I'm honoured and delighted to have been asked to give this graduation speech, and I want to begin by saying that this talk is not about my usual topic, energy. You've heard me enough on that. I want to talk about a few things which are at least as important, which will shape your lives in the way in which computers have transformed the world during my career. You're living lives and careers which will see significantly more change than any generation before you. It's worth remembering that the faster and larger the pace and scale of change, the more unexpected will be the outcome, and you can see that every day in politics. So your careers will present you and your families with an astonishing array of opportunities. And as an example of the scale of changes you'll experience, just think for a moment about something called Moore's Law. Gordon Moore was the founder of Intel, the computer chip company, and he discovered that the number of transistors per square centimetre on integrated circuits doubled every couple of years from the invention in the early 60s. And that would continue for the foreseeable future. It's still going on today. How on earth it does, I don't know, but it's still going. But over the last 40 years, do the maths. That's an increase of 2 to the 20. That's over 1 million times. The computer chips today are 1 million times more sophisticated than when they first started. That's why the smartphone in your pocket would pretty much have been classed as a supercomputer when I finished my doctorate. And I'm not joking. I actually, for a bit of fun, ran a piece of software that used to take the Oxford machine the large part of a Saturday, and it runs in a couple of minutes on my iMac and about 15 minutes on my phone. It really does. It is just breathtaking, and there's more where that came from. But that's produced a massive scale of change in what can be done with computers, and even now the capabilities are just not recognised by the general public. For example, let me just talk a minute about artificial intelligence and machine learning and the way that's blossomed over recent years. But even in the 1980s, there was an early example, and it was a really good example of creativity. The GE locomotive factory up in Schenectady, up in New York, had a very senior engineer in his late 50s who was a guru, and they suddenly realised he was about to retire. And what happened was any loco that came in for a service with a fault, this guy would do some sort of magic and say, it's that bearing in the gearbox, or the connecting rod on the third cylinder needs fixing, or the water pump's a bit bad. And they suddenly realised that there was just Joe, and they'd no idea what was going to happen. So they built what was at the time called an expert system. Today we'd call it a rules-based production system. But it was essentially teaching a computer system to diagnose faults on the locomotives using the same logic and experience as that retiring expert. The learning was in fact not much different to conventional on-the-job training. They basically captured his logic, put it in the machine, and then used the inference system in the computer to replicate what he did. And for many years after Joe retired, that computer system diagnosed locomotives immaculately, just like he did. Interestingly, it attracted quite a lot of interest from the US military. And if you want to, go have a look on Google at GE Locomotives Expert Systems, and you'll find, if you look really hard, a piece of paper from a military research when they were doing, my goodness, if we can do that for locomotives, what else can we use in the military? But this whole field's about to create the next industrial revolution, but in professions. First time round, the Industrial Revolution mechanized the craft of creating metal and wood objects and created manufacturing processes. But it was leveraging the workers. They weren't completely displaced, they were leveraged. They had to learn different skills, but they were leveraged. The next phase is going to mechanize, for lack of a better word, what much of the professions do. Anything you can calculate, deduce, or potentially provide a professional opinion on, however complex the rules might be, is potentially addressable now by AI. And I want to give you a few examples. And which professions do I think are most likely to change dramatically over the next 10 to 15 years? The first three are auditing. This is the lowest hanging fruit of all, in that most companies have all their financial information on big computer systems. What happens at the moment is, at the end of the year, a bunch of trainee accountants with proper supervision go and tick and bash a sample of those to check that the systems are working properly. There is no reason at all, in principle, why AI can't do that real-time, 24/7, now. And interestingly, there's a lot of work going on in the Big Four to try and be the first one there to do that. And I'll come on to the consequences in a minute. Engineering. So much of what engineers do consists of large numbers of calculations based on codes and standards. What is now BIM, Building Information Modelling, is so extensible in principle that there's no reason it can't flow through from what looks like today just 3D drawings, right the way through the entire construction and maintenance process. So you end up with an as-built system that shows you exactly what you have in your buildings and how to maintain them. If you look at the way you can link together the rules of things like fire and evacuation and safety all the way through the system, you can see the beginnings of some much cleverer ways of designing buildings. And indeed, it's not that far off, I think, where we will start building buildings, not like this in an old-fashioned craft way by hand, but out of kits of parts. You know, a couple of thousand standard pieces that you build every building out of, and then you dress it on the outside and on the inside to make it look like what the architect wants. But it means that the risk in building that building just diminishes immensely. Lawyers. Now, we all think that lawyers are a magic breed of people, but most contracts that they write are just computer programs, in essence, if you think about it. And already, with machine learning in place, you can see ways you can automate much of the work that lawyers do up to about 2 or 3 years before making partner. So just think of that and the other opportunities in professions. And think most importantly about the disruption. So just imagine now the auditors. How do I now train the junior accountants? What are they going to do for those first 3 years when they're not ticking and bashing? But we've still got to train them. How are we going to train the lawyers? Because in due course, I want an opinion from my lawyer that that suite of contracts he's just written will in fact protect my interests. Well, if he's never written them, where's he going to get the knowledge from? And the engineers, when I go to the engineer and say, great design, lovely bridge, I want your professional opinion backed by your PI cover, it's going to stand up. I don't want a Google certificate. Think about the disruption behind that. However, that change of computing power continues not just conventionally, but with quantum computing, where instead of looking at yes and no binary things, you can then look at all the fuzziness in between. And the horsepower behind that is potentially a massive step. It's a combinatorial step of improvement. By the time your grandchildren are your age, it's not unreasonable to expect that there will be machines who think, which will be smarter than all of us. And again, I'll come back to the consequences in a minute. But the other thing that's changing at a rate which is pretty much catching up to computing is genetics. The rate of progress is such now that there are no textbooks other than the very basic stuff, because the rate of progress of learning is so fast that the publishing process can't keep up with it. The only way you keep up with it is online conversations, networking. It's too fast. The ability already to create and manipulate both the genes themselves and playing with stem cells is actually enabling us to hack our genome in the way that you hack computer programs. A couple of examples from genetic therapy going on right now. We all know about the scourge of HIV, and we all know that it's now pretty much under control through antiretroviral drugs. Provided you take those drugs the rest of your life, if you're HIV positive, you're okay. You should be okay. However, the antiretrovirals actually kill the live virus, but they don't get at the virus that lays dormant, particularly in the T cells. But that virus that's not active at the moment can be activated when that T cell is poked in the right way. There's a technique in genetics called CRISPR, and it's essentially a pair of molecular scissors. And you can say to the scissors, find that particular gene sequence, chop it. Find that gene sequence, chop it. And in the last few months, there's been a paper in Nature where they have used this technique to take hold of T cells with that dormant virus in it, chop the virus out, spit it out. So in principle, it's now possible to cure HIV completely. In principle, I say there's some work to do to finish it off, but it's an astonishing change. And it's literally molecular scissors. And you can order the molecular scissors if you're in the genetics lab from a supplier. You can say, I want that gene sequence, please. And about 5 days later comes back the molecular scissors. It's commodity. Second example, it's now possible to sequence the entire genome of a fetus from DNA samples from the blood of its mother and the saliva of the father at about 18 weeks. In the mother's blood, in the plasma, there's about 13% of that, the free DNA that's in there, comes from the baby. You can extract that with the saliva. You can then combinatorially, by knowing what mum's DNA is and what the father's DNA is, you can adjust and you can work out exactly what the gene sequence is for that in vitro, that in vivo fetus. You can identify already now single gene defects, just like that. Today, you can do it. Then you can actually treat the fetus while it's still a little fetus. So, for example, there's a defect called osteogenita imperfecta, where the bones don't grow properly. A piece of research only a few weeks ago, been finished, where they've been looking at the efficacy of stem cells from embryos and stem cells from the mum's amniotic fluid to treat that. And you can actually treat that now, again, in principle, before the baby's born, so it's born completely fixed. The scale of this is just astonishing. But the state of genetics today is kind of where things were when the personal computer was a dream in Steve Jobs' mind. It's that level of relative naivety. Now, imagine what happens when you combine genetics and AI. The ability to take massive gene maps and find out where the diseases come from. The ability to use the AI to look at the reasoning behind this and to work out new techniques. So what then happens when we have that level of sophistication of AI with genetics? How do we hold all this to account? So one of the challenges for people like Martin is going to be, what does politics do in all this? How does politics manage this pace and scale of social change? Because it's unlike anything we've ever seen before. So it seems to me that you can relish and delight in the opportunities that you're going to help create and manage and direct for the betterment of all of us. And you have to be part of that huge change in national and international politics that needs driving through, whether the politicians realise this is coming or not. Some of them do. But I'd like to finish by warmly congratulating every single one of you on your achievements. As you go forward to build on your time here, I'd ask you just to remember one thing in particular, a bit different. Every second comes once, and you need to make the most of every single one of them, but have a wonderful, enjoyable, and satisfying time in doing that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. Looks like we've solved the dilemma of who's emceeing next year at graduation then. It's going to be my robot. And thank you, everyone, for your attendance. That concludes our graduation this year. Thank you to all of our guests, and a huge congratulations to the class of 2016. We have a champagne morning tea upstairs, and we look forward to seeing you all up there. As always, we always urge the discussions over morning tea or afternoon tea or wine and cheese. That's where the magic happens. So please make your way upstairs after the procession and do talk to people. Shake hands with somebody you've not met before and engage in any sort of discussion. I look forward personally to welcoming all of you next year for what will be UCL Australia's final graduation. But in the meantime, could you all please stand for the concluding procession?